So, Marjorie, if you want the recording stopped at any time, I can do that. Just ask. No worries.
Okay. Okay.
So, as you're a new face here, tell me where are you up to on this so-called journey?
Who knows? Well, as I wrote to you, I just wrote you a few words. I'm on a path of seeking, I would say for all my life, because there is something that's pulling me. Uh, on the other hand, I'm a very logical person. I'm a linguist, so I'm a kind of scientist, and I really like the method um, and structure. So I I don't know where I started because, as I said, it's for my life. But there was a certain point when it became very clear that I have to do it. Um, so at a certain point, I had I always want to learn to meditate, but somehow it was elusive to me. All the instructions I got were just sit down. So I sat down and do what? But at one point, it happened to me that just a everyday situation. I don't have a very good relationship with my mom, and we argued again, once again. And at one point, I was very angry, very very angry. And then it was about my daughter. She was interfering somehow, and at one point in this anger, it just hit me. I don't have to react. I don't have to let my feelings and my emotions rule me. And it was just a huge discovery in the middle of this argument. And I forgot about the argument and everything. I was just, wow, amazed that I don't have to react. I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my feelings. So this is where it started. Afterwards, I somehow forgot about it, and I'm not able to use it in everyday situations. I would need to use it. We all need to use this knowledge, but it's not always readily available. So I started out with Shinzen Yang first, then somehow this set of instructions opened to me, and names came to me, and people were revealing themselves to me. Shinzen Yang, after that, Daniel Ingram, if you know it, mastering the core teachings of the Buddha. But somehow Shinzen and Daniel, their method is you have to sit lots and lots of hours. And I thought, oh, I don't have lots and lots of hours. I'm working. I'm a mom, and so on. And after that, I discovered first, I think, Rupert Spira and many of these guys, and then Angelo Di Lullo, and I'm talking about years. And then lately, Pernille, and I liked it so much. She's so systematical. She really has. I like the structure that she gives. So I started to work, and I would say that I really understood the first and the second fetter. The third one, distractions. When I think about it, I think I can see them easily. But as I said, in the everyday life, you're carried away and
Mm.
you forget about it. You forget to do it every time. Fourth and fifth, I don't know. I don't know where I am. So I'm here. And after all these years, it's been 20 years of serious work, at least 20 years. Um, I I feel somehow that I need to start to work with someone. I'm myself. I'm not enough anymore. I need a guidance. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. And do you come to that conclusion because you recognize that um, that you lie to yourself?
Oh yes,
Mm.
Yes, it was so easy.
Yeah.
When Pernilla talks about starting points, I'm a passive aggressive. And this word envy, that was so true. That's so true to me. I always expect at work, I always expect people to recognize what I did. And I never tell I did that.
Mm.
I never take credits for what I did. I just expect people to see it. And it was always this way because I don't know, it was somehow not humble enough to just to be myself was not humble enough.
Mm. Mm. So, how long ago was it that you had that epiphany in the middle of the argument with your mother? When did that happen? Was that recent or a long time ago?
It must have been 15 years ago because my
Okay.
daughter is 18 now. She must have been 2 or 3 at that time.
Right. Okay. Yeah. 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 So it's yeah. So that certainly gave you the spark for seeking, eh?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Do you? I'm interested in a conversation with you about seeing. Do you see this as a spiritual path that you're on?
Yes and no. It used to be spiritual. Now it's more psychological at the moment. It
Excellent.
might change.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course. Of course, nothing stays the same. That's right. No, I'm really pleased to hear that. Yes, when we switch from the esoteric to the practical, right, from the spiritual to the psychological is practical. That's a great shift, and I think that's really valuable. It puts you in a discovery mode to
Mm,
understand and work out why things run or how things run the way they do. Not why, but how.
mm.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Although I have to admit, there is just a spark of a wish for a world to be somehow magical. Because if it's not, it's very depressing.
Yes, yes, for
Sorry.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Oh, well, let me tell you, there is a world that is absolutely magical everywhere. Uh, and that world exists beneath the world that we run in normally. So it's always available, that world.
Okay.
And I'm sad to say, as a linguist, you might be very disappointed, but that world exists beyond the scope of words to
Uh,
describe. Yeah.
I I work, among other things, I work with cognitive linguistics, and I find it fascinating. And one of the first linguists who worked, or one of those who founded the cognitive linguistics, was a woman named Eleanor Roche. She uh, she talked about categorization. How do we categorize the world through language? And her inspiration came through Buddhism.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's not not connected.
Yes, yes, of course. Oh, it's very much connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, do you see, I mean, I'm astounded, had a belief a long time ago about the importance of words in our conditioning. That's such a huge thing. And then much more recently, what has really brought it home to me, big, big, big time, is the use of language in the artificial intelligence chatbot thing, and the way that you can see how the whole world is really absolutely based on language when you look at the how human like those chatbots can be when they just because of the manipulation of language. It's just a mind boggle here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the problem with language, the marvelous nature of language, how can I put it? Um, okay, when if somebody was turned up to say wanting to look at Feta One stuff, the first thing I'm going to tell them is 100% of your thoughts are bullshit. 100% of your thoughts are not reliable. 100% of your thoughts are going to lead you astray if you take any notice of them. And that's a starting point that changes as we get through. So when we start to get round to Feta 4 and 5, we'll give Feta 3 a miss for the moment. But when we get up to Feta 4 or 5, then we start to see the positive impact of language and how it shapes our how we use it to create the world. Right? When we use it as thoughts, not necessarily as spoken out loud, but it's still language, very much language based thing. So determining where you are on that is really interesting. And the reason that we start with the idea of all of your thoughts being not helpful is to break the link between what is actually conceptual but is taken to be real. This is a huge thing in our society. We I don't know if I was ever taught about abstract nouns at school, or whether I was taught and I forgot, or whether I didn't never learned it, but I only discovered abstract nouns a couple of years ago. And the really interesting thing is how many people would argue to the point of wanting to get a gun out and kill you if you tell them they're wrong about abstract nouns not being concrete nouns. You know, they they
Like
could argue that they
nation,
are.
nation state, and things.
Yeah,
Yeah, linguists did think about that. Linguists do think about that.
yeah. It's absolutely. And after we recognise that we've been led astray by a lot of conceptual stuff, then we can start to see how we, and at a subtler level, how we actually construct the world out of concepts. So we do the same thing, except it's at a different level, and it's like at this time around when we see how we are actually constructing the world, then we're also much more in touch with what is actual, and that gives us tools to navigate through that stuff. Well, that sounded a bit wishy-washy, but anyway, um, the Feta 3 stuff is worth acknowledging, but not putting a lot of effort into it, really. It's because once it's seen, those things drop really quickly and easily. And so if you just take one of the things that Panilla says is anything you do with a purpose in mind really is
Mm.
Feta 3 stuff. And as soon as you see that, you might still do it, but you don't do it for the same reason. It's so it drops essentially that, but it can be a little bit more subtle than that too. So not anything you do with a purpose, but if you have a defensive reaction to certain things, like ownership things in particular, like if somebody sits in your favourite chair and you feel annoyed about it, that's a defensive reaction, and that's Feta 3 stuff as well. Or if the OCD stuff. If our knife and forks aren't put in the way that we want them to be put, do we feel annoyed about that? This trivial stuff. It's very very minor, but it's still there. So these are ways that selfing still exists, but at a so subtle a level that we don't even take any notice of a lot of the time. But when you see it, you recognise it, and that's usually all it takes to dissolve it.
I don't think I react to those things a lot anymore. Really, those does it have I have suspicion because I would say I don't have healthy boundaries. Does it have to do with boundaries? Because you can do anything to me. You can arrange forks and knives as you wish, and I won't react.
Mm, mm.
Is it just the third factor, or is it something with boundaries also?
There's yeah, there's no yeah. I had a little mind game then. There's no such things as boundaries around boundaries. Um, so yeah, is it boundaries or what fetter does boundaries fit into? I don't know. It's not important. Yes, it certainly may turn out to be a boundary issue. Uh, One of the things that makes it more obvious if it is a boundary issue is that if you have no boundaries and you are flexible enough to take whatever turns up, how do you respond to other people? Do you expect the same of them? Do you cross other people's boundaries? And so if it really is, if it's, see, it could be that boundaries is another concept. It's another story that we put over the top of things just to try and explain or describe them. And so when we talk about boundaries, it gets to be a bit tricky sometimes. Again, it comes back to at what point do you get defensive? Do you get defensive when somebody stands too close to you? Do you get, do you have an annoyance reaction um, if somebody calls you by a name that's not you're not familiar with or changes, you know? So when they say Maja, do they say Maya sometimes? And how do you feel about that? Yeah.
It's Maya actually. I
It is
do
Maya,
react.
okay, not Marja. Okay, yeah. Well, there you go. How did you feel when I called you Marja? Yeah, it's it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not being defensive there. So in a sense, I would say, yeah, leave it as a question. It's an interesting question. Is it a boundaries issue? Are there boundary issues involved in this or not? Um, and so as a result of that question, you'll notice more. You'll notice how you are with other people, and you'll notice how they are with you, because you'll have that open question, and you don't seek for answers; they'll turn up or not. Yeah.
Okay. If I may, just a second. So there was one thing you mentioned. When other people stand too close to me, I do react. And I feel like I would react, but I don't. I'm in the gap.
Mm.
So what do I do then? What exactly do I do?
You notice. You just notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, the whole idea of doing anything. Do you believe that you still have control of your life and that your intentions rule and yet that you're able to carry them out 100% of the time?
Uh, I do, but then I somehow consciously fall out of it. I decide, no, I know about that. So I just I think about it, and then for a while, for a moment, I don't believe that I have control. I understand that I don't.
Yeah, I
But
get what
then
you're saying.
it
Yeah,
comes back.
yeah. Okay, so that process, that's an interesting process that goes on. So, right, and it's a good example because it's a fairly subtle example of what I would call bypassing. And
Mm.
so when you say, now I remember, I don't believe in that, and so you change it, right? So
Mm.
that's my perspective rests on a story that says it doesn't matter what comes up. It's never about what comes up. It's always about what triggered that. Right. So it's not about the obvious thing. So when the obvious happens and we have an emotional reaction, to focus on what has happened is a way of avoiding what's actually going on. And what's actually going on is that something else was triggered that brought up that stuff. So if we don't get sucked into looking at the story, the content of the story about what came up, we're looking behind that. We're looking at what's underneath that. We're looking at what belief triggered that particular version of selfing, right? Where
Okay.
we still unconsciously believe in the existence of a self at in that area, just in that tiny little area that was triggered with that thing. And so it's one thing to say, I don't believe it, and then things change. But it's another thing to have things change without the idea of believing it turning up. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong. None of this is, no, we're not. So if we're, if we're locked into the idea that this is how we should be, that of course is also a red herring. It's going to take us down the wrong path, so to speak. So although we can't control our thoughts, they're going to turn up whatever turns up. And if a thought turns up that says that shouldn't have happened, or it should be different, then that's the reality. That's what turned up. Even though there'll be another thought that comes that says, "Oh, that I wish that hadn't have come, or that shouldn't have come." Right? So, and
Mhm.
then you go, "Oh, okay. Well, maybe I shouldn't have the thought that it shouldn't have happened." You see what I mean? Straight away, if the moment you hit the funny bone, you're out of that trap that you were in. You're out. You're no longer sucked into the content of that particular routine. And it's pretty easy. It only takes two steps to kind of break that if it happens. And that is to go, oh yeah, I saw that happen. No, okay, I also saw that I thought it shouldn't have happened. Oh, and then maybe I shouldn't have had the thought that it shouldn't have happened, and straight away you're into that funny. Yeah, yeah. So what we're trying to do is not. It's weird. It sounds paradoxical. We're not trying to change our behavior or our responses or whatever, but we are. So we recognize that trying to change them directly is not going to work. It's never worked. And the only way we can change them is by getting friendly with them and accepting them and seeing what triggers them. And then maybe what triggers them is something we have access to doing something about, or maybe we have to go into what triggered that. So we may go down several levels, if you like, or layers down to whatever. But always we're going to reach a fundamental thing that says, ah, I had this belief running, and now I see that I've got this belief. It's pretty stupid, or it's not appropriate, or something like that. So if it hits our funny bone again, you've got it straight away. You know that that's it. It's broken, finished, kind of thing. But if it has a different feel, you might go, oh well, maybe it's going to take a few times for that to get dismissed. But what we're doing essentially is changing the way our brain works. And so we're moving from left brain to right brain. Now, as a linguist, your left brain is very, very well tuned and active, and so on and so on. And that's fine. We're not saying one is better than the other. They'll always be both in use, regardless of whatever you think is happening. But we want to give the right brain a little bit more credibility, because that's where the magic is. That's where you get blown away by the sight of a dewdrop on a blade of grass, or or something really ordinary. The way a puddle on the ground sits can rock your socks simply because you see the magic in it. And that all comes from the right brain. And the left brain saying, oh, yes, there's water and there's a hole and there's... and the right brain's going, oh, look at that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's a long, long story in my head. Long, long story.
Yeah, that's
Because
okay.
sometimes I have a feeling that I'm convincing myself just what you told now. I try to convince myself and then I don't believe myself that I really understood something and I didn't. I really didn't because back again.
Mm, yeah. Yeah,
So
sometimes it takes a few bites to get a good mouthful, you know? Yeah. It's and you can and it's a good thing, you know. It's really wonderful and marvelous the way it works. You know that those things that we didn't get, they'll come back to give us another go at them, and they'll keep coming back until they get got, kind of thing. You know, we don't ever have to chase anything. It'll always present itself for us, um, and it's really willing and ready to be looked at. Yeah. So you can't do anything wrong. You know, no matter what comes, no matter what turns up as a thought, no matter what your response is or your reaction is, it's all information and food for the the appetite of seeking, whatever. But you're so tell me this with the how can I put it well with the breaking of the first couple of fetters. What's your what's your level of seeking? I mean, how obsessive are you these days compared to how you were a year ago?
totally. Uh, Compared to a year ago, I was also just as obsessed as now.
Mm.
And it's really a big part of my life, big part of happens in my what happens in my head during the
Yes,
day.
yes, of course, of course. Yeah, I get that. I guess everybody, everybody here gets that. Yeah. Okay, so there is still a big part of you that says this is not good enough. Yeah.
And it's more as the time goes, it's being me. It's more and more insupportable. It's so itchy. It's more and more itchy. It's more and more difficult. It's some kind of suffering that's not suffering because nothing bad is happening to me
Mm, mm,
at the moment. I had something 5 years ago. I was very sick, but now nothing is that bad, actually, if I look at my life. But the feeling that I want to jump out of my skin is really there.
mm. Yeah, I get that. I do remember that. So when
And
you're,
if it
yeah, go on.
just go on, go on.
No, you go.
I mean, if it's if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't for this knowledge that there is something to do about that, I think I would be suicidal. I don't know, for no reason.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. Yeah, I was having a quite a similar discussion with my wife, who is doesn't she thinks this is she doesn't think this is she thinks I'm deluded anyway. Um, but we were having a discussion about what what makes us weirdos is really the best way to put it, you know, like, so there is them out there who think everything is the way it should be and whatever, and they're really happy with that, or they seem to be. I don't know, maybe they're really unhappy, but I don't know. Anyway, um, and but then there's those people that somehow did they get a different chromosome? What caused seekers to become seekers? They knew from a kid, they knew from really young that there was something wasn't right, you know? And so it's like, was the beginning of this the same time as the being born, or did it come in later? Or who knows? Is it a particular chromosome or a bit of DNA that causes people to always believe that this is not right? There's something a lot better than this. Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
interesting one, isn't it? Yeah, because I used to think it was very much a nurture issue, but now I'm not so sure. Yeah. But anyway, it's good speculation. I like it. Yeah. So so Maya, so here there is now a story that there is still a significant amount of selfing going on for you.
Mm.
Um, and that's pretty much based on the fact that your seeking is still as intense as it used to be. Yeah. So when you have a shift that is, um, and yeah, see that stupid word shift. When at a certain point, it's something will happen, and your perspective will flip into a slightly different way of looking at things. So instead of looking from the west, you'll be looking from the east, or something like that. I don't know, but anyway, a perspective will change, and you'll go, oh, now I see things from this perspective. That puts a different light on a lot of things. And that hasn't quite happened for you yet by the sound of it. But it's got to be really close based on what you say about your other things, you know. So you're flirting with that. Do you have this feeling like something is imminent for you?
Maybe, maybe yes. It has to be. It has to be. There is this thought, okay, thought that from one side that it has to happen. Uh, I had a stupid thought more than 20 years ago before I started thinking in this way. This was the time that I was, let's say, spiritually interested. There was this thought, oh, Buddhists say we are born again and born again, we have to reincarnate. I somehow have no, really a stupid thought. I I have no nerves to do that anymore. I'm too tired to be born again. I
Mm.
want this life to be the last for me. And and now I think, oh, I'm gonna die, and not gonna do it. There is this idea of time. There's this idea of time. I understand, but the time is here for me. The time is everything. So I have to somehow, because I'm so tired. I don't know why I'm so tired. And I was close to dying. I had cancer 5 years ago, and it was a so not the easiest of situations. And I remember one moment. It was, I mean, it's an ugly situation in any case. But there was a moment where also something that struck me, that hit me, a thought, an insight that either I'm gonna live or I'm gonna die, and somehow that it's the same. And I
Yes.
don't remember this thought. I don't remember. Um, I don't understand the thought. I don't understand it, but
Mm,
it came to me somehow. From that moment on, everything went for the better. This was the start of my path to healing somehow. I don't know
mm,
why, I
mm.
don't know where from, but that was this insight that either living or either dying, it's the same.
Yes, yeah,
I
I get that. Yeah.
still not able to explain what it means.
Mm. Well, that's one of the
Have
things
some,
that I think, and I'm not just trying to avoid the question, but I think that's one of those things that can't be adequately answered in words. We can't create a concept that makes any sense of that one. But I get what you mean when you say they are the same. Yeah, it makes no difference one way or the other. Um, and a story comes up here that the way that they can be the same is the recognition that there isn't a self that we need to look after and protect and defend. And so maybe you got to the point where that was something that jumped out at you. Uh, and in that way, what's the difference? I mean, what are we talking about? Who knows? Yeah. So you've had a few peeks at uh,
yeah,
something. Yeah.
maybe one part of the problem is that I'm searching for such peaks. I want them to come,
Yes. Yep.
but they come when they want and not when I
Absolutely.
want.
Yes. Yep. 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 And the other thing that may be there that's really, really common is that you can find that and stay there. You can't. You
No.
can't. You can't live in that state all the time. Well, I say you can't. Maybe you can, but people don't. That at all. There is always movement. There is always fluctuation. There is always. So what happens when we get away from this idealism about a spiritual awakening or enlightenment? Let's just put it in terms. I think Jed McKenna says it much better, and he just puts it in terms of human adulthood, right, or childhood. And most of what you see out there that people call themselves adults are still just kids. And you can see that quite easily, can't you? That they operate like a child does. They operate from their emotions, and their emotions are all about whether they get ice cream or not. Um, so that's pretty common. It doesn't got to be careful here. It doesn't make us superior by any means. Of course not. That's just a different way of looking at things. And so it's a different life and a different world. A different world exists for them, literally, not just figuratively, but quite literally. They see a world frequently, especially the people on the far right wing, they see a world of threat. And so they're constantly on survival mode and high alert and so on. Anyway, yeah. So I guess the story that I want to get over to you, if as a starting place for us here to do this, is that no matter what you're experiencing, it's not only okay, but the more unpleasant it is, the bigger the opportunity for you to find out what's underneath it, what triggers it. And you've got to be a bit careful about the pleasant stuff, and the pleasant stuff can be pretty ego enhancing as well. So, it has its negative sides as well as the positive that's there. But so really what we need to do is learn how to watch, learn how to see what's happening. And here's the interesting one, without having an opinion about it. Because we by nature we've learned that we need to have an opinion about everything, in brackets, that matters. And so and then of course there's further brackets that to us, everything that matters to us, we need to be able to, put on the shelf So, that's our conditioning. And whereas something quite different to that is the reality, and that is that we need to learn to just be open to whatever presents. And if that doesn't happen, what I'll guarantee you will happen now, because of where you are on this so-called path, is that sooner or later you'll recognize that you were taken away, you were lost in the content of some story. Sooner or later, maybe not as it's happening, maybe after it's finished, sometime, depending on how strong it is and what it's actually achieving. But you can guarantee you will almost always, you'll come to the point where you go, "Oh, yes, I was lost in that particular story." Right now, so that the way that you can develop the right brain activity more to start laying down neural pathways in the right brain is to pinpoint that moment of recognition. And so the moment you go, I was lost in that emotion, I was lost in that story, my thoughts kept running obsessively around and around and around that particular event or whatever. The moment you recognize it, you celebrate the recognition. Doesn't matter what it's about. Forget the content of it. That's irrelevant. The fact that you recognize that, you celebrate that moment, and you celebrate it with a laugh. You laugh internally. You fake the laugh if you need to. If you don't feel any genuine humor, fake a laugh, because pretty quickly it'll become genuine humor every time you do it. But what we need to do is get started. We're going to set up a trigger point, if you like, for that recognition. And the more you do that, the quicker it'll happen, and the sooner in the process you'll see that that's what was going on. Oh, you'll even get to the point where you go, oh, I was about to get lost in that story. I could see the pull of it, the attraction of it, and I was about to jump in when I saw that. I didn't have to. And so it can go, and these things will come and go as well. But so in some of those things you won't see until afterwards. And if you don't see them at all, well, you don't know that you haven't seen them. They just don't feature. So that, and in a way, that serves as a double thing too, because people just love structure, and they love to be given things to do, because it makes them feel like they're going to achieve something. But of course, it's not really doing at all what we're doing, because we're accepting whatever turns up, and we're going, oh yeah, just look at that. And if I was never lost in it, then you can just have a smile and go, great, I didn't get lost in that one. And if I was lost in it, you can have a smile and go, great, I saw that when it happened. With the moment I recognized it, that seeing happened, and it was great. And so you start to change the old habits. This is a lot of what is there is a lot of, is habitual stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. Now look, well, there's nothing official here, so you don't need to ask permission to talk. If somebody says something and you have a thought about it, jump in and say it. No problems. You don't need to ask permission. Anything goes here. Yeah. So how have you been, Marius?
Been pretty good actually.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Tyler helped me see how I was um, believing in some fear or thoughts about fear, about having fear.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the last thing that has been bothering me for a while. So after that kind of dropped. It's
Okay,
been
so
a couple of good
simply
days.
seeing that was enough for it to drop, eh?
Well, we will see if the actual thing that I fear will actually happen, and then I will deal with it then. But right now, I don't feel the need to even
Yeah,
entertain
yeah,
that thought.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, there's always that thing. Do we know it? Do we know if it's going to come back or not? And
yeah,
look, I can't even say that without smiling, because it's pretty hilarious. But yeah, it's a kind of a thought that'll turn up. So what I say is, well, I'm going to wait the rest of my life to see if something comes back, and if
yeah,
it doesn't, well, I'm not going to be disappointed. But
yeah,
so yeah, it's always a case of wait as long as it takes, and if nothing happens, then pretty soon you just start to forget about it. It's not
yeah,
an issue anymore, and then you'll go, oh, there was that thing. What was it? And you won't be able to remember what it was. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, and yesterday, well, we were planning a trip or a holiday to Thailand, me and my wife, or she is planning. I kind of bought the tickets and then we'll see how that goes. But yeah, there was like a very clear moment yesterday where she was stressing out about all the small details that I would also join her to stress out about. Like we have to fix this and plan that, and all of that just felt so unnecessary. So it was kind of a recognition that from where I've been to where I am. It
Yeah,
was
great.
a
Yeah.
nice moment. Yeah.
Mm. So do I take it then that you feel at the moment like there's some pretty good happenings, good activity going on in you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I don't feel like I'm subscribing to thoughts anymore.
yeah, big one, huge one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to construct a story around seeking that's going on for you, is there seeking there at the moment, or how would you describe that? Your current experience of that?
Well, I still enjoy either joining these meetings or watching it on YouTube, but it's pretty much that.
Okay.
So I don't read anymore. I don't like I used to enjoy um, watching all sorts of non-duality content and Angelo
Yep.
DeLulo and things like that. But it's yeah,
They've lost
doesn't
the pull
feel
of
interesting.
them.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm. I get that. Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah. So when you say you're, I'm paraphrasing, I'm interpreting here. When you're curious about whether or not that fear thing will come back, that's that's a huge statement in itself in lots of things, and I really thoroughly agree and concur with you about how can we know about that unless it does, and if it doesn't, well, we don't know that either. So what I get is that um, you don't have an expectation that everything's going to be perfect and that you'll walk on water and never have a bad thought again or anything like that.
No,
So you
I
pretty
I
much
would
get
say I
that.
expect that that would happen at some point, but I'm not going to
Yep.
uh, deal with that now before it happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, if it happens, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, good stuff, good stuff, yeah. So this is just such a huge thing with people who are still seeking is those expectations. So and that's why I like to talk about this here, because it helps people with those expectations. So do you get it? Do you get that what's happened for you is that you've now become more fully human than you were before? You no longer have the restrictions that used to be there in terms of expressing emotion and whatever. Do you get that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, um, I also had this, um, I shared this thought with my wife the other day, that, or yesterday, that I mean, it's like thoughts is just limiting um, our reality. So thoughts and assumptions and beliefs, it's just limiting what is and what could, or what could be at the next moment. So
Absolutely.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. So um, and there is there are thoughts, but there are like I can just I'm very aware of the thoughts that are going on, and a lot of the thoughts are also kind of more in the background, I would say.
Yep. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
helps me kind of be and
Yeah. That's excellent. Yeah.
get
Good.
more out of life now, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I came up with this one the other day and I really like it. I think it's great for if we imagine thoughts kind of flying in from somewhere that we don't know where, but like they turn up over our shoulder and they fly in into our perception, if you like. So I'm seeing it as, well, every thought is like a book with a title, and if we just read the title on the way past, we know what that thought's about, but we're not going to open the book and start reading the stories that are in it. And every thought has a whole book full of stories, paragraphs and whatever inside it that we could get into if we wanted to, or sometimes if we don't want to, we can get into it. We can't not get into it. But anyway, so what we do is we just allow them to fly past, and maybe we'll notice the title, or maybe we won't. Maybe they'll go past and we won't even see what they're about. I couldn't tell you what some of my thoughts are about. They're just in the background. And I don't
Yeah.
even know if they're there all the time. But if I go looking, I can find them. But maybe I construct them as well. So who knows? It's an interesting one. But that that ability to allow them to go past without opening the cover and starting to read the story is just such a huge thing in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I used to have a pretty intense inner narrative, so to have that space and the option to actually kind of listen in or not is a huge relief for me.
Yeah, yeah, big one. Yeah. So, all right, here's a story. I'll tell this story with Maya in mind here. That from something that you said earlier, Maya. But I'd really like your feedback on it, Marius, and you too, John. And I've said it before, so some of you will have heard it. But essentially, I don't think the Buddha was talking about lifetime after lifetime after lifetime with reincarnation. I think he was talking metaphorically, and what he meant was that every morning when we wake up and we put on the coat of self, that's the reincarnation, and that when we wake up, it's like that coat is different. It's not really a coat of self per se, but it's a coat of thoughts, stories, but that we can wear very lightly. It's pretty sheer, right? But it's not a heavy overcoat of how we used to see ourselves every morning. So in a sense that once the way I understood it, my paraphrasing is that once somebody wakes up, they're freed from that reincarnation cycle. And that also makes sense, you know. So you can see how a lot of people wake up and immediately concretize what's going to happen during the day from the perspective of who they believe they are. That's the code of self, the big, heavy overcoat of self. It's like a big woolen overcoat that's wet. It's so heavy. That's the self that I call reincarnation that happens every day. How does that story fit for you? Is it feasible that maybe
For
the
me,
Buddha took that as reincarnation and not?
yeah, I've actually heard you share this before, and it made me think about, well, reflect on it, and it does fit well. I actually have a wife from Thailand who talks a lot about Buddhism and reincarnation. Um, I think it makes sense what you're saying. I think it's the same as the saying goes that you never kind of, or I don't remember the quote, but it's something about stepping in the, each time you step in the river, it's different or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also kind of the same for every time we wake up. There is a slight difference about the suit or the self that we put on from or yeah, every time we wake up. Um, and yeah, I
Mm.
mean, when I wake up now, in my own experience, every morning, um, the difference for me has been before there would be intense thoughts. They would be most active in the morning after waking up. But now there is just, they're still there, but they're not as prominent, or like I can just tune out, like I said.
Mm.
Mm.
And they will get less demanding of attention the more they're pushed into the background. The less time we actually do pay them attention, they'll stop being so insistent as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. I kind of noticed that happening already, I think. Mm. This has been going on for a while, so it's like we didn't really talk about this the other day, but this has been a long process.
Mm.
But that it was that fear of the fear that I've had that kind of made or helped the thoughts have more power.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one, and it's another one that's open for exploration, and that is to notice how our our feelings. So as soon as I say that, I go, I want to tell you, Maya, that I have another story that says a feeling is a sensation with stories hanging off it. And so so when we have this idea pops up, if there's an associated sensation, often it will seem like the sensation is validating the thought. Yeah, it says, "Oh, yes, it's right," when in fact the sensation may be a result of the thought, not come before it. But who knows? But anyway, essentially, they're not really associated. So that's one of the things that will happen with Feta 4 and 5 stuff. You'll see that there isn't a connection between the stories and the sensations. They just coexist, and it's story that attaches itself to the sensation. When the flaw in my theory about reincarnation, well, if it's a flaw, I don't know if it is or not, and that is that I don't have any trouble accepting or believing that each Buddha has been able to remember the previous Buddha's childhood. And that's just part of the unexplained magic. That probably fits into quantum mechanics or quantum physics, if anything. But yeah, anyway, who knows about it? Yeah. But I
If
like my
that's the story you
comfortable
believe.
stories. Sorry?
Yeah, if that's the story you believe, the quantum mechanics.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So there was this thought yesterday that now that everything is seen as thoughts or stories, basically, um, now one could just subscribe to any stories one would want to kind of create life as one would want.
Yeah, except it doesn't work like that because you have to believe a couple of delusions again to make that one work. You know, you have
Yeah,
to believe that you can actually choose and that you can control and so on.
yeah, that's true.
So we're down at a deeper level, and so consequently, what everything is a lot more complex and subtle as well. Um, so it's true to say that now we have better stories, and they're better by virtue of the fact that they don't bring suffering in the same way that they used to. Excuse me. So while that's true, you could also say it's true that the more this happens, the more this happens. And so it's a
Mhm.
self-replicating kind of thing in a way as well, or at least it appears that way. Whether it actually is or not's another story, isn't it? Who knows? But so we very quickly get down to the point where we can't even talk about it. I don't know how to say what I feel to you about that. Is it a case of, and I have no idea whether it is, but it just comes to mind, so I say it. Is it a case of, well, this is good, I want more of it?
Um, no, I don't think it's exactly that, but I think it's more about like uh, okay, this is totally meaningless, so let me give it some meaning.
Right. Okay. Fine. So give it some meaning, but recognize that that meaning is just a good story that you come up with.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I could never know, or like, yeah,
So that's the
it's
nature of
still
meaning, you see.
meaningless.
People
But
people who haven't woken up still think that meaning is something that is objective and tangible and can be measured and weighed and put in a bottle. Of course, it's not even close to true, is it?
yeah,
Meaning is something that's constructed and it's purely conceptual. And if we relate to it like it's real, then our experience of that is real. But what we related to is still only a story.
yeah.
Hmm. I
This reflection was sparked by uh, an earlier video that you have from these meetings where David Bonney shared his story around mm, the loving aliveness that he could feel in that moment. So to kind of put the meaning on that, he interpreted it as God for him.
Hmm.
Um, and so it was clear that he recognized that that is just a story, but it's still a story that gave him more richness
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah. And that may well be a way to relate to all the people who are religious. That even though they may be misguided, I believe they're misguided in a lot of things, they come to that same place of goodness, human goodness, which
Yeah,
is, yeah,
I've never been religious either, but I kind of I I've had the same types of thoughts as he had in what he
mm,
shared in that video. So
yeah.
it was
Well, I
nice.
would even come back one notch and say, what is love?
Yeah,
It's like that's trying to describe the taste of chocolate to somebody who's never eaten chocolate,
yeah,
in some cases. But kind of everybody gets an idea about love, and presumably they're all different. I don't know,
yeah,
but at least at a subtle level, they're different, the details, the complexity. But there is without doubt this amazing feeling. And, just, I mean, I feel it now just talking about it. There is this opening up of the chest that's just, it's,
yeah.
there's something just incredible in it. So call it love. Is that constricting it? I don't know if it's, I don't know anything about it. I just want to cry. Mm.
That's beautiful. It's nice to at least have something, like if you're in a social setting, it's nice to have some kind of concepts to
Oh, sure. Of course.
relate.
You have to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're never going to go out and say, well, whatever percentage of the world doesn't think like me won't exist for me. Of course, they will continue to exist.
yeah,
Um, we're going to relate to them, and we're going to relate to them in a. So we'll wha- however we relate to them isn't for a moment likely to be how they see us relating to them. They're still going to see us relating coming from whatever that fits into their idea about what's going on.
yeah.
And how can we be anything other than open and compassionate about that? That's just the way the world is. And the amazing thing is that somebody out there with this horrible idea about how it's good to carry guns around, for example, as amongst other things, can still be a really good person at a heart level. They just because they got a stupid idea or two doesn't make them not a good person. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You. This isn't really related, but you sparked a reflection that I had yesterday, where I was catching myself judging. Where I realized that the only times I judge anymore is, or probably the only times we all judge, I would guess, is when we see something in others that we don't like about ourselves. And digging deeper into that, I see that I have this conflict sometimes where I, on one side, want attention, and on the other side, I fear attention. So if I see somebody who is displaying behavior of wanting attention, I get triggered and I judge them. And of course, I've done this so many times now that I kind of just point the finger right back at me myself when I catch myself judging. But I can't really I've seen myself do this so many times, and I've kind of tried to get to the bottom of it, but I can't seem to.
Okay,
I know it has diminished. I don't judge as much anymore, so there is like gradually less, but there still is.
yeah. Well, we don't want it to go away until we can see what triggers it, because that's something that's in there, and especially so that we've done the full 3 circle, and here's where our the full 360, and here's where our thoughts start to become useful again. Right. So what we're looking for is a particular flavor of a thought. Right. So this different to the old thoughts that we were letting go by. These thoughts are possibilities. They're not facts. They don't come with an exclamation mark. They come with a question mark, and they come with in a very soft manner as well. So they're just saying, "Are we relevant?" That's what they're saying, kind of thing. So those, and if you trust your intuition to communicate you like that, then it's likely as you start to examine something that's been triggered, it's much more likely that what's going on will get revealed to you, but you'll definitely never get it by trying to chase it. So trying to work it, to track it down, to hunt it down, the answer to what's going on isn't going to work. You've had a lifetime of avoiding that. And you're really good at it. Everybody is. You're really, really talented, and there's ways of avoiding it. So the only way you're going to get to see what's going on is to get really friendly with it, to get close to it without alarming it, without it getting. So every time you alarm it, it gets defensive and it takes you off on some other track. It's very good at pushing you down the wrong road, so to speak. So you never actually find out what's going on. So you don't want to alarm it. You want to get to it. You want to get close to it while it's still feeling relaxed, and then it will reveal itself to you what's going on. But you can start with, there's 2 things that come to mind, right? So you already recognize that. All right, so let me just jump back a little bit. One thing you said was, you see the fingers pointing back at you when you point. There's actually three fingers pointing back at you.
Yeah.
And none of them say guilt or blame or criticism, right? And so that's what we've got to be really careful about. So what these three fingers pointing back at you are saying is look, look, and look. Just look, right? Don't have an opinion about it. Don't have a judgment about what you might find. Now this
Does
is
that also
classic.
mean curiosity? Because it's more
Curiosity is a different
curiosity.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So curiosity is good because curious is what explorers are. And so in other words, they're just looking at what's around them to see what's camouflaged and to then to get a better outline of what's actually hiding in the bush, so to speak. So they're looking at what's here now. They're not seeking for something in the future. And so that curiosity is an explorer's way of being, which is great. It's discovery, it's recognition of stuff. Yeah. So the idea is you don't go chasing it. What you do is you get friendly with it, and but you do that by inviting it to be present. And so even though it's not going to feel necessarily comfortable, you're able to withstand the discomfort in order to find out more about it. So that change in attitude straight away, that thing of going from I want to know what's going on there to something interesting is happening. Let's see if we can be still and see how close it comes to us, kind of thing. You know what I mean? You get the feeling I'm trying to give you, the
Yeah.
feeling of yeah. And if you think of, and this is, I mean, anyway, comes to mind to say that often our first line of defense is to get distracted by something. So some activity will come to mind that needs to be done or wants to be done or whatever. Let's go and have something to eat. Or it might be a first line of, right. So it starts up here kind of thing. But it's a distraction. So it takes us away from what we were feeling a bit uncomfortable about. So we can get busy and it'll go away. And it does go away often with that kind of thing. It's a short-term fix because it comes back. So after distraction, if you can't distract yourself from it, very likely the next step is of defense is anger. I'll get angry about something out there. You know, all of a sudden it's, you know, the fridge has done me wrong, or something ridiculous, whatever it is, you can get angry. And so that's another distraction, but it works. Again, get angry because we're focused out there. Something went wrong, right? And we'll jump on anything. We'll make it up if we have to, but we can get angry. Underneath anger is usually fear. I fear, you know, so you start to feel afraid. So the actual sensation, so with anger, we've got a lot of sensation, but we're not so focused on that. We're just knowing we're angry. But when you get underneath anger, you get fear, then that's the sensation that we can focus on. Or it's an emotion, fear. It's a sensation with stories again. Right. And then if we get through that, then underneath fear is usually a bigger fear, a really big fear, right? That might also be described as terror, right? It's because we're getting really close to something extremely painful, or at least it's believed that it's going to be extremely painful. So we get this last-ditch effort to keep us away from that, and that's the terror thing. And if we get through the terror, then underneath that we're likely to find shame. We're something we're really ashamed about ourselves. And if you get underneath the shame, you find guilt. Oh, That's because I deserved it. It's me. I'm bad. I'm guilty. I'm not enough. I'm whatever it is that's down there at that level. And underneath that is just a frightened, innocent child, probably, that's in the midst of a whole lot of circumstances that created this belief in the first place that they then adopted as their own. So it became me. I'm bad. I'm wrong. Uh, so that's a kind of a hierarchical structure story, totally story. Who knows how accurate it is for each individual person, but that's just one way of seeing how there's multiple levels of stuff that goes on. Right. And then what we're talking about is what they call shadow work. So once we get down to what stuff's in the shadows, the stuff we've been avoiding all our life, then that there, and we've all got some of that, but in a lot of cases it's no big deal. You know, we've worked a way to cope with it. But when we start to take the lid off things with this investigations that we've been doing, that kind of stuff can, well, we've been successfully avoiding it all our life. All of a sudden, we can't avoid it so much anymore because we've taken the lid off and we've let things out, and we've chipped away at some of the defensive behaviours that were keeping it hidden. And so, yeah, but they're possibilities, and it's. I have an intention to do something. Like make up a meditation for people to do with this particular thing that they can do on their way into sleep each night for a while and see what happens. That could be interesting. Um, and I have had a little start on it, but I scrapped that because it was pretty crap. So I'll have to have another go at it. But I suspect that could be good value because we all go through that kind of stuff, and you don't have to know the details. That's the brilliant part. You just have to know that something is there in order to be able to take the power out of it, take the energy out of it, and then we'll work through it. Yeah.
Can I jump in?
Absolutely, please. I'm doing a lot of talking. I'd rather somebody else did some.
Marius, do you want to look at it now? You want to do it now?
Sure.
So you said something about not wanting attention.
Yeah, there's simultaneously a want and a fear of it. So when I get it, I feel fear.
Right. So could you give yourself attention and find out what doesn't want to be seen? So ask yourself the question, what don't I want to be seen?
Mm. And nothing comes up. It's just blank.
Okay, let's make the scenario more vivid. Say someone you admire, and you don't want to be seen by him, and then he sees you. What's your reaction?
So there comes a familiar story about not being good enough.
In what aspect?
In every aspect. I mean,
Everything?
not being approved of, not like if they give me the attention that I want, the attention that they give will find out in some way that I'm not good enough.
Do you think you're not good enough?
There is thoughts about, there is interpretation about the contraction that happens in that moment.
And can you locate the contraction?
Yeah, it's partially two places. Is in the lower or upper stomach, lower chest area, and then, well, it's actually from the lower chest area and up to the face.
Mm-hmm. Can you stay with it now?
Mm. Thoughts come up, but that there are just sensations.
The contraction is a sensation?
Yeah.
That's correct. How what's bad about this sensation?
Mm. Well, the interpretation is that it makes me, or it feels limiting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So in this moment, can you feel completely limited?
As in accept the limiting feeling.
Yes, as in get closer to this contraction, and once you do, remove that thought that it's limiting.
Mm.
And then what does it feel like? Because at the moment we're going back into thought, we're popping out. I want you to go back in. Just stay there. So then thoughts about it being limited or even a contraction, these have like a negative tone to them. Remove them. It is not a good or bad sensation. It's just a sensation. And then what is it? What happens to that sensation? What's happening?
It sort of releases.
Mm.
Yeah.
Stay with it. Stay with it all the way. Follow the release. What's happening?
There is kind of like it released, but it still has like a tug from the heart.
Mhm.
Or the heart area.
Can you get in closer? What's actually doing the tugging? Or you could also ask yourself, does this tugging do anything?
Yeah, a story comes up that there's something that is scared of letting go of that.
Letting go of that sensation.
Mm.
Mhm. What is it protecting you from? What is this? Can the sensation protect you from anything?
No.
No. Now have a look. What's its function?
It doesn't have a function.
No. It's a reaction to a story, but then it's circular. So
Yeah.
get in closer. Now that it doesn't have a function, you thank it and follow it until it releases.
Thank you.
Is it gone?
Yeah.
Cool. So now we go back to the story. So we bring up the same scenario. Someone you respect is here, and you are seen. Is there a reaction now?
No.
No. And then we bring up the other scenario where you are judging someone for wanting attention. Play that in your mind. Is there another reaction to that?
No, I don't think so. No.
Cool. So we've looked at we've looked at judging other people, and then now there's no more juice, and we've looked at judging ourselves and no more juice. Done. Job complete.
Yeah. Thank you. That was nice.
Cool.
Those circular stories are funny.
They don't end, eh? You got to sever it somewhere. I feel like emotion's the easier way.
Yeah. They're so subtle. Some of them, at least.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why investigation, why just seeing what actually is there is so powerful, because we just really hone in on the details that we just would normally skip over. We normally wouldn't even recognize that they were there, those details. But as soon as you get into the details, the whole story starts to fall apart.
Yeah, it's like John Lee helped me with now, just removing the post-its and getting under it. It's I know those things, but I don't always remember to do it.
Yeah, well, of course, it's not a case of remembering, but yeah, but yeah, remembering doesn't happen. Those things don't jump up sometimes.
Yeah,
And then when you look at them like that, you kind of can't avoid them, can you?
no.
I got a question for Maya as well. Maya, your turn. So my question for Maya, you said the story of reincarnation. What I got from it is you're like, so my question is that story causing you suffering? Unmute.
Sorry. It's an old story. I don't think about it much anymore. And I get the silliness of it.
The what of it?
Somehow the silliness. It doesn't make sense,
Nice.
actually.
That's good.
It doesn't make any sense.
So what's causing suffering for you?
I don't know. I don't know. It's just suffering. It just is. I mean, there are things in my life I should change. And I just listened to Pernilla the other day. She was saying, when you're working with fourth and fifth fetter, don't change anything. Don't get divorced. Don't change your job. Don't make any big decisions. There is one pending decision for me. I will have to change my job because I live in the UK and I work in Croatia and I commute once a week. It means flying. So I will have to do this. But on the other hand, there is so much, as you say, when you have feelings, when you have emotions, and Vince said that there is a lot of material to work with. My job is still producing so much material for me that on one hand, I would like to get rid of it. On the other hand, it's really a good opportunity to do it. And I have some other business in Zagreb where I work, so I will have to commute. I just wouldn't want it to be so often. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some objective things that cause suffering. On the other hand, okay, it's just going to the airport, sit on the plane and go there and do my lectures and come back, deal with my elderly parents. But it's okay. I do it. I don't understand why it's causing so much suffering. Also, things that shouldn't cause suffering, which is like nothing. I don't know what. It's just suffering. I want something. I want to, maybe I want to be pushed off the cliff. I want to see this from the other side, as Vin said. It's just the seeking. I think the seeking is a lot of suffering for me.
So, in so your job causes suffering, and then seeking causes suffering. What about
Yes.
sitting here now? Are you suffering now?
Yes, but not because of suffering, because of other things. That's the story about the job. I'll have to fly this afternoon, for example, and I'm annoyed by the thought of it that I have to do it.
What if you didn't have the thought of it? You've got the plan. It's like, so, and at this time I got to go. I got to pack up
Yeah,
and leave. Yeah, that's done. That's planned. It's in motion. You've pushed the play button. That's gonna happen. What about now? What else?
but based on some previous my previous successes on getting rid of thoughts and being in the moment, I wouldn't suffer that much if I didn't think about it, about having to fly and having to give a lecture tomorrow, and based on what I experienced before. But at the moment, I'm not able. Sometimes I'm able to disconnect. Sometimes I'm not, as much as I try.
Huh. It's weird. What I'm hearing is I've planned this. I've planned my life. This is gonna happen. I got to go fly. But then you've done all your planning. You're complete. Now you're sitting here, and then you're still planning, and that's the suffering.
Yeah.
That's confusing to
Yeah.
me.
Uh, this is because sometimes I'm successful at understanding this is just a thought and there is some emotions, there's some sensation that goes along with it. Sometimes I'm successful at understanding it, and sometimes I'm not.
Okay, I just had a thought.
Sometimes, yeah,
So you've say, does this make sense to you? It's like, so you've done all your planning, and then it's kind of irrational to keep planning, and then why? Is it because there's an emotion underneath it all that you don't want to feel?
it might be.
Yeah. So what's going to happen? What would happen if your plan doesn't go according to plan? What would that feel
Oh,
like?
my small plan or my big plan? My small plan is flying and doing what I have to do. My big plan is living the life like I'm living it now. What, which one of the plans if it doesn't go? The small
The
plan.
one you keep thinking about now, is that the
Yeah.
small plan?
It's a small plan. Yeah, it's just daily life. Well, if it doesn't go according to plan, and there is some possibility because of the weather in Europe today that it will be problems, then I know that I'm able to deal with it in the moment. Uh, I don't have too much concern about it because I know if something unexpected happens, if my plane is late, for example, in the evening, it's just late. So I don't anticipate problems.
I
It's
don't see
just
this as
that,
suffering. This is
yeah.
strange.
Well, no. So if you ask me why it causes the suffering, I don't know.
What's your definition of suffering?
It's a sensation. It's a sensation. It's like really, as I said, it's feeling like I want to jump out of my skin. It's not itching, but it's itching inside. It's itching metaphorically somehow.
Hmm.
And I try to sit with it many, many times. I'm not able to see it changing. And I obviously didn't see it go away. I occasionally do it. It's often, it's with me. I live with it often, very often. Sometimes I'm calm, sometimes it's not there. But oftentimes it's here, it's unpleasant, which is a judgment, okay? Me thinking of it as unpleasant is a judgment.
That's okay.
But
You want to hear my definition of suffering?
yeah, please.
It's a thought to me. It's the thought, this shouldn't be happening. So then your definition, it's maybe like a secondary definition. Does that make sense? So there's something in your current experience, which I was trying to get to, that shouldn't be happening. Like your bum's on the seat. Should that be happening? And then you just go through everything. What in this moment shouldn't be happening?
I shouldn't be thinking.
Ugh.
I shouldn't be thinking.
Isn't that another thought?
Yeah,
Muy bueno el TDT.
sorry.
Sí, muy bueno.
David, can you mute yourself? Yeah, do you see that as another
Yeah.
thought?
Wait a second. Now I do, but as it occurred, I didn't.
No, they're
As it
slippery like
first
that, eh?
occurred, I didn't. Now I do.
Yeah.
Now it's a thought.
And then how long is a thought?
For how long I entertain it until I
Incorrect.
drop it.
Incorrect.
No?
The answer is like how long's a sound? How it's just like it's just kind of there, gone. In between two thoughts, nothing. There's
I know. I'm able to see that. But
yeah.
but I have to stop thinking to get to the gap between two thoughts. But if I keep churning the thought, it's here.
But a thought isn't like a constant thing. It doesn't.
It's a story.
Once a thought's gone, and then you have another thought about that previous thought,
Okay.
it's talking about nothing because that thought's gone.
Okay.
Does that
Okay.
make sense? So
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's more like I don't know, the thought I have to get on this flight, and then I hate thinking about this, and then why do I hate thinking about this? It's always about
I see it, yes.
yeah. So maybe the clarity at which you look at your thoughts isn't clear enough.
Enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
might
you
be.
have to see the nature of thoughts. Like you're trying to get rid of something that you don't know what it is. And then because the nature of thoughts is it goes away by themselves. You don't need to get rid
Okay.
of them. It's just like a sound.
Okay.
It's like you're hearing something. It's like someone shouts at you. Gone. Where's the shouting now? It's kind of like that.
I think I can see it.
Yeah. So then we come back to the question, where's the suffering now?
I'm confused
About
about the question. Where's the suffering? No.
good. Because first we got to define suffering, and you said it's an emotion, but I'm saying that emotion comes from a thought of like I don't want to be in my skin kind of thing,
Yeah.
or I don't want to be thinking. I shouldn't have thought that thought. But then where's that thought now?
I have other thoughts now.
Do they cause suffering?
No, because especially this one, I'm confused because it's putting me in a state of confusion, which is very expanding and makes me not being able to talk about it, and then back to the thought, I'm confused, and then now forth and back between the sensation of being confused, which is expanding and big, and the thought, I'm confused. This is where I'm now. I'm not suffering now.
That's what I was trying to point to. Does confusion cause suffering? No, it's the desire to not be confused that causes suffering.
Yeah, and I don't have it because this is what I do have some insights from before. So this being confused, I understood how to be good with it and not trying to search further, just staying in this confused.
Can you flesh out this confusion for me? I'm confused on what you're confused about.
About the question, but I don't remember your question. About some question. But you put me in this state of confusion, and I like it here, and I'm stuck here now.
Okay. So I think that the practice now is, am I suffering now? That's the first question. Why?
Yeah, that was the point.
And then the why is usually I don't like what's happening. This shouldn't be happening. A thought shouldn't be happening. A sensation shouldn't be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's happening. It's like you're fighting against life. If you're fighting against reality,
Yes, you're right.
is that insanity or not?
I think so.
Yeah.
It might be. It might well
It
be.
100% is. It's kind of like John Lee shouldn't be talking right now, but I'm talking. Yeah, it's kind of you're fighting a losing battle if you do that.
This is also something I sometimes remember, and I try to train myself to do it, to accept things. When something annoys me, then I sometimes remember to say myself, okay, this is what it is, and I have to accept it.
You don't have to.
I'm not always. It would be nice. It would be nice. It would be less stuff.
Accepting something implies there's someone there to accept.
Okay.
It's funky. It's more like just seeing that thing that's annoying you is already happening, and then annoyance is already happening, and then trying to accept it is happening. Does that make sense? This is kind of like complete relaxation. This is just what's happening.
Okay.
And then also the other thought of like, I don't want this thought to be there. That's happening, but that's only happening now. That's reality.
I have the feeling that you are a bit too much ahead of me.
Incorrect. We're in the same spot.
No?
No,
Okay.
no. It's just more like you see thought unclearly. You're trying to see thought with thought, if that makes sense. And that's causing the confusion. I think you just watch thought and what it does, and you're like, oh, it's only the current thoughts that's happening now is the one that's happening now. You don't worry about the other ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is hard.
Is that
But
a
thank
thought?
you.
Is that a thought?
This is hard, is a thought.
Yeah. And then can you now relax?
Yeah. A little bit more.
Yeah. So are you
Can I share
suffering?
a
Yeah, go for it.
thought? I'm just wondering, Maya, if because I can see, or it sounds to me like you're kind of foreseeing potential imaginative problems that could go wrong with your plan, and the thoughts are about those things that might go wrong in your head, and that is what's
Uh,
keeping the thought train alive? Or am I hearing you wrong?
yes, not concerning the flight itself. It's not a problem for me, but the things I will have to do once in Zagreb. Giving a lecture and dealing with my parents. It's hard. My mom has dementia and it's a hard situation. So things I have to deal with there are hard.
Okay.
So what I said before, that my life, that I don't have objective things in life that could cause suffering, is not entirely true. I mean, when you're able to deal with things skillfully, then nothing causes suffering. But on the other hand, some things.
So, Maya, that brings me back to like a bit of a full circle. So, two things come to mind with thoughts that are there that have another thought attached to them that says they shouldn't be there, or it's better if they're not there, or whatever your version of that is. Because we can't control our thoughts, you can't stop them from happening. But you do recognize from your experience, from several experiences, that those thoughts seem to either not be there or have no pulling power. One or the other of those things, so you know that that's possible from your experience, but at the moment you're not experiencing that. You're experiencing being very much a victim, if you like, of those things. The immediate problem is that you don't actually have any control over those things happening. So there's two things that come up here. One really big one I'd love for you is what you've taken to be acceptance. I'm not sure about, and I'm not particularly interested in it. But what I want you to do is to consider that there is a different kind of acceptance to all of this that will make it so that those thoughts will lose their pulling power. They'll lose the power to demand engagement from you. And the first is that if a thought flashes by, and this is what Tyler was saying, that thoughts don't come and stop. They flash by, and if they get on a repetitive loop, they can seem like a thought is constant, but it's not. It's actually always a repetition of that thing. So, yeah. So the first thing is, if a thought is there, then a thought is there. And there's no escape from that, because by the time you realize that thought is there, it's already a thought about the thought.
Gone.
Yeah, so it's gone, it's finished, yeah. So it's another thought about that thought. And that's actually where the stickiness is, in the thought about the thought. The thought that says, I didn't want that thought to happen, or I wish it didn't happen. But the only way for you to change the nature of your thoughts is to become friendly with them.
Okay.
So if they're there, accepting that they're there, or rather accepting that they have happened, and it's past tense, is absolutely imperative. That means that there is no resistance, there is no fighting, there is no aversion to take place by accepting it. But how do you do that? You can't say, I'm going to do that. If the opposite happens, then that's also what's happened. Right? So what acceptance is about isn't that there is something I might call resistance or non-acceptance here, and I need to deal with that in order to have acceptance. That's not the road to go down. The road that is most productive is for you to say, bring it on, baby. Give me more of this. I want to know what's going on. So you want to get closer to it. You want to be friendly with it in order to find out what it's about. And the irony is that the moment you can see enough detail, it'll simply fall apart. It won't have any pulling power at all. For me, that the portal that I fell through when I woke up was the recognition. One element of it was the recognition that by the time I became aware of what my experience was, it was finished. It was always in the past tense because of that lag between when it actually happened and when I became aware of it. You know, it might only be milliseconds, fractions of milliseconds even, because it can happen really fast, but nevertheless, it's always a memory. And so when we talk about experiencing the experience rather than experiencing the memory of the experience, that's a subtle but really, really important difference between it. So at this stage, let's say it seems like I never actually experienced the raw experience. Everything is getting to me a bit slower because of the stuff that's going on in here. And so it's always the memory of. So whatever I experience, I'm experiencing the memory of an experience, not the actual experience, because it's always finished by the time I become aware of it.
I think I got that already, because this is something that occurred to me many, many times. But on the other hand, I have no idea how it is to really experience the moment, or I don't believe that I have ever experienced the moment.
Right.
I told I don't believe. It's maybe a belief, and it's maybe reality. I don't know.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. It makes no difference. Right? The brain processes things whether it's imagined or real in the same way. And so the actuality of it, it's not relevant to anything. Right? So you can take them all as real, if you like. Yeah. So what remains? So even though you have that logic that It's already finished. There is no point in doing anything but accepting it. Anything other than accepting it is insanity, because that's simply going to corrupt the next experience, isn't it? Any
Yeah.
satisfaction, anything that says it should have been different, it should not have happened, anything like that is just going to muck up the next moment. So it's crazy to do anything other than be totally accepting, to totally surrender to the fact that that's happened. Yet you don't. Somehow, some part of you says, well, I know this, but it still shouldn't be happening. Yeah?
Okay.
Is that your experience?
Yeah.
Hmm. So what if we recognize that first loop where we have a thought and then the thought comes back again? Are you lost in the story of the thought? And is that the reason why it comes back again?
Sometimes, but sometimes not.
Right. And if not, it still can come back again?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mm.
Okay, so my thoughts are, what I would like you to do is to metaphorically face those thoughts without a judgment or an opinion about them, in order to find out, to get closer to them and find out more about them. So this is just a fantasy scenario that we're kind of creating.
Okay.
You know? Yeah. So you're going to metaphorically face them. You're not going to run away from them. You're not going to push them away. You're going to actually invite them in. Welcome, come on in. You know, let's get intimate. I want to know more about you, is your attitude towards these thoughts. If that occurs as a thought, that's what we would hope to happen. We'd hope that we've planted the seed for that to happen to you. And so the idea is that your whole being just wants to get closer and closer and closer to those thoughts, to see what the subtlety of them is, what they're about, what they're inviting you to, what they're promising you, all that kind of stuff. And then at any point there, when that's happening, when it feels like you are friendly enough with them that you can tell them to piss off and leave you alone, and they don't take offense, that they're happy to do that. So that the trick is, what you're looking for is a level of intimacy where they won't take it personally, so to speak, when you tell them to leave you alone. Can you get that as a fantasy picture? So we're
I
talking
think
about not the thought itself, we're talking about your relationship to the thought.
so. Okay.
And let's just go with that and just see what your experience is, how it's different to what's been happening when you approach these things from a different perspective to what you've used to see. Right? So we know the possibility of thoughts being not intrusive, not demanding of attention. We know that possibility from momentary experiences in the past. And so although this will be a different version of that, it is still a version of that we're inviting to happen as a result of. And don't get sucked into thinking, if it works, that it's something you did. Don't pat yourself on the shoulder for doing it and having it be successful. Right? It's just a way of looking at it, that we're looking to see what might happen. And if it seems to
Okay.
work, then we still need to look at it closer and get more details about it. So what eventually it's not that the opposite will occur, it's that simply won't occur anymore.
Okay.
It's a bit of a trick, that one. It's a subtle difference. Yeah. So all of the things you already know. So you've already got the tools, but nobody just showed you how to hold on to them. That's just, you use a hammer in this way, or you use a spanner in this way. And so you've got the toolbox, you've already got that. You already know about this stuff. I'm not telling you anything new, right? But what you have felt was you were a bit hands in the air. Oh, I don't know what to do, with more so than anything. Yeah, so at the moment, what we're going to do is we're just going to polish the tools. We're going to get the rag out and we're going to clean them off, and we're going to make sure that they're all okay. And then as that, things will change for you. Absolutely.
That's why I'm here, because I said I felt that it's the time that I need some guidance now, because I have learned so much, but somehow I don't know what to do. I need someone to tell me, like you did. So now, um, try to get closer to the thoughts, and not expecting anything from them. And so,
Yep. Just being friendly.
yeah. So
Yeah.
thanks. I need, being friendly. I need someone to tell me what to do, and then in a few days, in a week, I don't know, when I come back, then
Yep. And we'll check it out. Yeah.
have something to say. Yeah, and for you to say, okay, this is working and this is not working.
Yeah. We polish things. Yeah. And interestingly, it's not that you need someone to tell you what to do. You just need someone to tell you when what you're telling yourself what to do is on track or off track.
Yeah.
Yes, that's all.
Yes. 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 Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. What are your thoughts, Bianca?
You were saying before about this levels of fear, and you know how under the fear there is terror, and under terror there is shame, and I was looking at my addiction to YouTube and what's in it, and well, I get to this fear, but I don't know which level it is.
Yeah.
Like on Sunday, it was I was scared stiff.
You were
Like scared stiff.
scared stiff, yeah. Of? What were you scared of?
Well, if I there is a meme that I think it's a good it's a good wording, that everyone is doing the best they can, and that is terrifying. And it's also about me. I am doing the best I can, and that is terrifying.
What's terrifying about it? What is terrifying about it?
That I can't do any better.
Oh, okay. So it's terrifying that it's not enough.
and I'm scared of consequences of what I'm doing, how harmful it is to me, to others. You know, it's innocent, but it's
Yeah. No,
awful.
I get it. Well, I'm curious. I'd like to know more. So, how is doing the best potentially harmful to you and others? Is it a failure of that? Is that not being enough your best? The negative consequence you're talking about, or something else?
Well, I can't say for sure about others. That is just my imagination.
Yeah. Okay. So bring it back to you. You doing your best, and you're terrified of that. Is it? And that is because doing your best is or is not.
It's oh, but there is a lot of strong emotions. That you know, like now I've started shaking,
Mm.
and it's a burden for the body.
But that shaking has not come from doing your best, is it? That's come from something else.
This shaking is doing my best.
Yes. Okay. I get that.
It's coping by shaking.
Yes. Yeah.
No, on Sunday I was very scared. Now I can see that it's also it's becoming numb.
Mm.
I'm numbing,
Yep.
and it's also a part of coping.
Yes, sure. Yeah. I didn't see any trembling on Sunday. That doesn't mean it wasn't there. Did you experience it? It was there?
No, on
No, it wasn't.
Sunday I was just
Yeah. So you were scared shitless on Sunday, but your body didn't take over to help you cope. You didn't need to cope in that way on Sunday. And today you're not so scared, but your body has taken over when we start to investigate this. When we get a little bit close to it, even a fraction, the body takes over and says, oh, this is so bad, I need to shake. I have to dissipate some energy. Is that accurate? Yeah. Well, do pull me up. I rely on you to pull me up if I go down the wrong path. Yeah. Okay. So that what I'm finding interesting is that you recognise you were scared on Sunday, and you didn't have the shaking. And today the shaking is what tells you that you're scared. Would that be true?
It's maybe, I don't know if it's like like when I was more in contact with the fear in my mind, then there was no need to shake. But
Okay.
now in mind, it's partly in denial. It's numb.
Yes. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. 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 So
So
it's
I'm going, like just leveling. And now mind takes care of it. Now body takes care
yeah.
of
Yeah.
it.
Okay. Yeah. We're looking for that quiet spot in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when body takes care of it, can you see? Would you say it's accurate to say that it's not just the body coping with the consequences of being scared? It's actually the body is actually directing the attention away from what it is you're being scared of. Does that seem at all accurate? Or maybe a more accurate way to put it, let's get your response to this one. Your body is protecting you from something when it shakes. Does that seem accurate?
Well, it feels more like my mind is protecting me by numbing, and this energy of fear, it has to go somewhere.
Okay. Okay.
So it goes into the body. It's like the body has no say.
I get it. I get it. Okay. Yeah, for sure. That sounds good. Right. So either way, like I mean, let's see the body as an extension of the mind in that way, and that that is that whole process is protection.
Yes.
It's trying to keep you away from danger. No?
Yes. Yes. From falling apart.
Right. Okay. Falling apart. Ah, there's a big one. Right. Falling apart. So yes. All right. So is it not good that you can see that this process happens? It's not happening in the dark anymore. It's you are seeing it happening. You are seeing the active
Mm.
process that happens under certain circumstances. That is a protection that's trying to keep you together.
I hope that it's good,
Mm.
but I don't know.
Yep. Okay. Of course. How can we know? That's right. Yeah. So if we call what that thing you are protected from, that danger, let's say that's the monster under the bed. It's the unknown something that's there that's causing us to react and respond in a way we do. Now, while that stuff works brilliantly and easily, we have no motivation to change it because it works. A bit of mind numbing and a bit of shaking that's not really a big deal, but it can be, but it's not really. But if
but I'm able to function like that and
exactly, yeah,
earn my living and
and it
somehow
passes too.
it goes.
Yeah. So I'm wondering whether or not you've ever experienced the possibility, the idea as a fantasy, sure, that one day you won't need to have this. It won't be there. If we got rid of the monster under the bed, if he wasn't there anymore, and there was no need for the mind to numb or the body to shake, presumably that would be a good outcome, would you think?
Mm-hmm.
Not needing it anymore. I don't mean not being able to do it. I mean just not needing it, having no reason to do it anymore. And I imagine that you can have the fantasy that when you do get to shine the torch under the bed at this monster, you'll see that it's not substantial. It doesn't really exist as anything. But until you see it, the threat is huge. Eh? Do you have that? Do you have that in your mind as a reality? Or do you think it really is going to cause you distinct harm if you let it out of its cage?
It has happened, but I fell apart.
Yeah,
It
but
can
you
happen
didn't
again.
fall apart because you let it out. You fell apart because you got exhausted trying to keep it in.
Yes,
That's my story. I don't know about if it fits for you. Yeah, it's
yes, because I was not able to keep it in.
yes. And so the idea, the storyline that I like is that not that we can keep it in and get in and kill it, but rather that when we become friends with it, it will cease to be scary. It won't, and will, in fact, it doesn't really want to harm us. It only
Oh
appears like
no,
that.
as I imagine it, it's an infant.
Say that
An
again.
infant. It's an infant that won't
An
stop
infant,
crying.
yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. An infant in pain for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Oh, that's big.
and
Mm.
it wants the whole world destroyed because it is in pain.
Yeah, yeah. And can you imagine that if it ever happened that we could cradle that infant in our arms and just hold it until it relaxed.
I've tried.
Yeah. Can you imagine it getting to the point where it doesn't feel the need to have the world destroyed in order to be okay? I mean, it imagines, I imagine that it imagines that the destruction of the world would also mean the destruction of it, and that would be finally some peace. it's an incredible corner that infant is in order to think that the only way to get peace is for everything to cease existing. Yeah. It probably doesn't even know about that feeling of being.
Well, it's, I'm putting it in words like that, but for it, there's no difference, world. Just stop the pain, it's all.
Mm.
Can I ask you a question, Bianca?
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me that what exactly, like in terms of what are you doing your best, and that frightens you? Like what is the fear there in terms of what? What context are you giving it?
Oh. I think it's just how I deal with my everyday life, with my job, my house, paying the bills.
You feel like that is a struggle?
Yes, because so many things trigger the fear, and then I have to push through this fear to get things done.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just coping with fear.
Mm. Yeah, because the reason I ask is I used to, when I felt an uncomfortable sensation or emotion, like fear, I used to have this tendency to find an interpretation or a story to fit with that emotion. Like I gave it a reason so I could understand why I'm feeling it in order to solve the reason, solve it in a way, in order to get away from it. But for me, that I saw eventually that was kind of what was perpetuating that feeling. It kept it alive instead of solving it. So yeah, I just was curious what beliefs or what thoughts you were believing that kind of maybe kept this fear alive. What context, if that makes sense.
I have memories of causing harm without realizing it, or thinking that it's nothing serious.
Do you judge yourself for that?
It's rather, I'm just scared. I'm just scared of what harm I can do without realizing.
And you see that fear, that's you're scared of a thought about what you can do, what harm you can cause.
Yes, I am scared, and I also see that this fear is also causing harm. Yes, yeah. Doomed
Because
if I do, doomed if I don't.
yeah, because it sounds to me that, like, again, you believe the thoughts that are telling you that the fear is also harming you. So that is also a belief in thoughts. Like, if what would happen if you didn't subscribe to those thoughts about fear being harmful?
There was also a thought like that on Sunday when I was scared stiff. The thought came that somehow I feel like a better human with when I'm so scared stiff.
Mm.
It's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's I like to be curious about the interpretations I give to my feelings and sensations and even thoughts about thoughts. It kind of helps me stop that circle of life or circle of thought life, because again, it's just a matter of stopping and not believing in the thoughts that you have. But I know that that's not always easy, but it is the interpretation we give to it, the situation that you're in.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. So I'm getting a little pressure to wind up here, but at the same time, we need to go at these things as only as fast as or slow as they invite us to. So integration is always a really good thing. Yeah. So although it might seem like you saw what you already knew, it's always a bit more complex than that. So I'm hoping that some new insights will have happened as you've started to explore that stuff. And it certainly feels to me like you're exploring it at a different level than what you have in the past. So, yeah, I really like that, Bianca. But slowly, I think that's important, especially when we've got such big, volatile physical defense things happening. That says, take it slow. We'll go as fast as we can. Yeah. So, on that note, let's wind up for today. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to wish everybody a nice October because I'm going on a journey and I'm not going to be online, I guess.
Okay. For a while.
Just for the next 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I'll look forward to hearing your experience when you get back. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Leonard.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Have a good journey.
Enjoy,
Thank you.
enjoy, and thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Yes, it's been good again. Always good.